You're listening to Greater Good Radio Hawaii. Please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. Today's guest is Bob Hiam, President and CEO of Hawaii Medical Service Association. In 2004, HMSA was presented with the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Award for Distinguished Community Service from the March of Dimes, and the Multiple Sclerosis Society presented the MS Hope Award to HMSA for its outstanding commitment to community. Bob, you told us a little bit about how being involved in the community was really important if you are a business leader in Hawaii. Are you able to tell us a little bit of your involvement?
Sure. As I said, I really got started community involvement with Aloha United Way, and actually got to the point where there are term limits on that board, and served on the board and termed off, and then about 4 years ago, I had been off my obligatory year or so, got a call, would I come back on, which was sure. Well, would you be chair of the board? Oh, really? Okay. And the person that was asking me, I knew was probably not going to be there real long. So then my next question, and how long do you plan to stay around? And he said, well, 2 years, but here's the plan for transition. And so I realized I was going to have this opportunity to lead it through a pretty major transition from a leader that had, been the chief professional officer at Aloha United Way for 14, 15 years here. And so I took that back on, and that took a fair amount of my time. But there have been other things that have been interesting to be involved in. I mentioned earlier, I think, in the introduction, the Children's Discovery Center. I did served on that board for 10 years, and I did go off of there in January. It's the amount of boards you could serve on is sort of endless, and so I've always kept it limited to the number that I felt that I could actually participate in. Because if you can't go to the board meetings, if you can't participate in it, this really isn't a community that needs names on the board. They need people, that can provide, some direction, some strategy, or that one great idea. And so I try to keep that balance. I joined the UH Foundation board about 2 years ago. And, that's very interesting. Very interesting times at UH. Foundation is sort of the central fundraiser for UH, and they're kind of getting off the ground, moving along, and then they have a turnover in president. So there's just been a lot of interesting challenges to do it, but there's again a lot of really good people at the university, and a lot of good people that are involved in the foundation. Those are two of the sort of the nonprofit activities I'm involved in.
How do you decide which organizations to get involved in? Because I'm sure everyone wants a piece of, your expertise and your experience.
There's two things that really drive that. What does the organization do? And is it something you feel that you can contribute to? And the second, really gets down to who's asking. And so if it's somebody that you spent a lot of chits out there by asking them to do something, or they're close, you respect them very much, then you tend to say, okay, I'll do this, whether you feel you had the time to do it or not. That's what it really comes down to.
What's your opinion on using nonprofit side as almost a leadership training ground for key management? Walter Dodds, when he came in, said that for their company, they have to have 2 tracks, and one track was your business side, but you had to have the community side. And by taking leadership positions in nonprofits and community organizations, your skills get better really fast. What's your opinion on that?
I agree with that. I think, and we'll have two things. Sometimes there will be people that will call me and say, we'd like you to be on our board, but we know that you're probably too busy, which may means we really don't want you on the board, but we want somebody else from HMSA, and that's okay. But, who would you recommend? And actually, I prefer that, because then we can use it as part of the leadership program and designate people that we want to make that investment in. And then the other is that the people themselves have some connections and come in and say, oh, by the way, I just joined such and such board. And that's great. They may not sort of be a fast track kind of person, but I think that's they have the passion for it. They get involved in it. That's really good.
Thanks for joining us today on Greater Good Radio. For more information or a transcript of today's show, please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. This is your host, Evan Leong and Carrie Leong, saying please join us next time for another episode of Greater Good Radio Hawaii.